Second topic, I guess, really. Uh, Google is shutting down Stadia. Now, it might surprise you to learn that this is not a headline from a year ago. It's actually a headline from a couple days ago. September 29th, 2022, via The Verge. It's happening. It's actually happening now. I was just as surprised as you were, honestly. Like, wait, it's not. It's like learning that like Jimmy Carter's still alive. You're like, what? He's still alive? What? Yeah, no, he's still alive. What the fuck? What the fuck? I thought he died. Huh? It's like a Mandela effect. I thought Google Stadia died a year and a half ago, at least. No, it's still been trucking. I have no idea. It's basically been dead or in maintenance mode for the better part of its existence. And finally, officially, it's getting the axe. And it's really funny because okay, let's run through the details from this article. The service will remain live for players until January 18th, 2023. Doomsday. Google will be refunding all Stadia hardware purchased through the Google Store, as well as all the games and add-on content purchased from the Stadia Store. So just everyone's getting a refund. Which actually poses an unfortunate question of, wait, hang on. So the service is shutting down. This was like a cloud service, right? There's no physical games. There's no nothing. So all of this, the controller, the box, if you had the box, which I thought was like not the point of it, but whatever. Does all that just become like e-waste? That's just garbage. It becomes literally unusable. Huh? Damn, what an excellent like, you could actually like frame it. You could taxidermize your Stadia controller and then like put it up on display for like, yeah, like a dodo bird. You're not getting any more of these. So, Phil Harrison put out a blog post. A few years ago, we also launched a consumer gaming service, Stadia, which leads me to believe that this blog post was not about Stadia. There was just like a side note, pretty much. And while Stadia's approach to streaming games for consumers was built on a strong technology foundation, it hasn't gained the traction with users that we expected. So we've made the difficult decision to begin winding down our Stadia streaming service. Holy shit. So there's a lot to unpack here. Strong technology foundation. Now, I understand that these are just words, right? These are just words that he's saying because they sound good. Because you could just as easily pull up the video of that guy from the Washington Times or wherever, using the Stadia on like metropolitan top tier internet, and like he's hitting the spacebar to jump in Assassin's Creed, and like a second later the character jumps, and then he hits it again, and like half a second later the character jumps, so it's not even like a consistent level of latency. A strong technology foundation. Interesting. It hasn't gained the traction with users that we expected. Damn. So second part, difficult decision. This was a difficult decision to shut down Stadia. Dude, if you had any business sense at all, this should have been the easiest. You should have shut this down before it even. Oh my god! Before this even got out the door. The whole Stadia thing is such a nightmare. It was like, what an incredible failure. Like, a really incredible failure. It didn't even serve the purpose that it was supposed to. Like, wasn't the idea that, like, oh, it's for people who don't have a lot of money to spend on games, but also you need, like, really good internet to be even mildly, like, even be kind of playable. And also you have to pay a subscription, which I'm sure, like, depending on how much you play games, probably, like, eclipses the amount of money you'd be spending on games. Wasn't, like, Destiny 2 on there? Isn't it, like, a free game? If you got the Stadia and like, bought Destiny 2, or got Destiny 2... Wait, didn't you even have to buy the games themselves? Yeah, you had to buy the games separately in addition, and into the subscription, I think, and then like, you could only download, you could only actually purchase them through like a Google app on your phone. It didn't even have like a store interface for like your TV or your computer. Why did you think that this was a good idea? Difficult decision. This was a difficult decision for you? Holy crap. Harrison says Google sees opportunities to apply Stadia's technology to other parts of Google, like YouTube, Google Play, and its AR efforts. I have no idea what parts that were, like, not already just in those, like, live streaming. I don't know. I have no idea. I feel like this is just him covering, like, oh no, we can salvage it. Don't worry, investors. It was just a little experiment. And it's funny because this Stadia should never have been a console. It should never have even tried. Google's getting into the console space. That's like the dumbest thing you can do. Anyone trying to get into the console space now is like a crazy person. Like, okay, getting into the phone market, sure. Okay, that seems like a logical... Like, they already make Chromebooks and they made tablets and the phone. Okay, that, like, makes sense. You've got your own OS. Okay. That at least makes sense to me. But, like, a console? A video game console? That's so wildly, like, out... Like, I guess Sony did it in the 90s. It's so, like... when the industry was going through, like, a huge shift because Sega was fucking dying. Nintendo had a fallout with Philips, and their console was, like, going to be on ice. There was, like, this whole period of, like, 5 or something years in the console industry in the 90s where, like, oh, what's going on? What's happening? Oh, there's an opportunity. Sony sweeps in with the first, like, big 3D console. I know that the 32X existed, technically, but, like... It was 32X. They come in with, like, Metal Gear Solid. You know? Yeah, it's a pretty different time from, like, 2020. A pretty different time from, like, oh yeah, we're like pretty entrenched. Like, we understand what the industry is, like what the market is. Getting in here, even back in 2013 when the Ouya came out, I was 11 in 2013, and even I knew that that shit was gonna fail. I was like, no one's gonna buy that. I don't know anyone who would buy an Ouya. And guess what? No one did, because it had nothing to offer. It was just like it was like a vague pitch. It was like a pitch. Stadia should have been like an infrastructure. Stadia should have been like a service that Google offered, like Amazon Web Services, right? Amazon could have made like their own browser. Excuse me. They could have made their own browser. They could have made their own search engine. But guess what? They didn't. They just made Amazon Web Services. Now they host like a percentage of the internet. Much, much better idea to like just create the platform. You're like a platform company, not like a console. I guess a console is a platform, but you know what I mean, right? Like, you don't make the content. You make the platform for the content, not like hard. I guess they sort of. It's just a bad idea. That's what I'm trying to say. Like the amount of effort. So like, okay, if you're gonna like launch a phone, I feel like the amount of stuff you need is way less than a console, right? So if you're gonna like launch a new phone, what do you need? Okay, you need features. You need like a certain speed of your processor. You need a certain level of sound. You need a certain, most of the time, you need like a certain storage capacity. You need a functional operating system. That's why most people just use Android, made by Google. Stadia should have just been like the Android for cloud streaming. You're just like streaming games, someone else comes and picks it up. What was I talking about? Right, like you got to put in some legwork, right? But compared to like launching a console, it's like, so first of all, you need to make the console work. You need to do all that stuff on the hardware end, basically, or the software end, or whatever, if it's a streaming service. Then you have to like they have to design a controller, and they pretty much just They just made like a worse Xbox controller. They just took the Xbox design and then, like, from what I hear, just made like a much cheaper, worse feeling version. Like, so you're already getting into like the tactile. There's a whole like Sony and Xbox and Nintendo have all like perfected the art of like a good feeling controller. They have like patents for this shit. They have designers. They've had people who've been doing this stuff for forever. They have supply chains because they know that the player is going to be using this and they need to have a decent experience in their hands. Google makes bad decisions with YouTube. They don't know how to make a controller. So you're already dipping into like two spaces that you really don't know how like what you're doing. The third, you gotta get games for it. You need games for the thing. So like, oh, are you gonna get first-party developers? You're gonna like sign on a studio to make stuff for you, but like, why would they make things for you and not other? Like, why would they make you an exclusive for you when you're like, they don't even know what your install base is gonna look like? So we'll get like third-party developers, but like their games are already on other consoles. And also, if it's like a multiplayer game, there's no crossplay, so you have to own a Stadia, and it's like they're trying to squeeze. They're trying to like squeeze. They're like a big elephant trying to squeeze into like a clown car. That's what they are, trying to get into the console market. It's just so many bad decisions. Let's get back to the article. The company also plans to make it available to our industry partners. Again, they just should have made the platform, which aligns with where we see the future of gaming headed, he wrote. Google detailed some of the finer points of the shutdown in an FAQ. Refunds will automatically be made through the Google and Stadia stores, and you won't have to return any hardware. I hope not. Jesus. Imagine having to mail your controller back. Like, what the... Yeah, so don't do that. Stadia Pro subscriptions will not be eligible for a refund, but you will not be charged during the shutdown period and can access games you might have redeemed as a Pro user until everything is wound down. Google has closed the Stadia store, so you can't buy games or in-game transactions. Okay, at least they did that. The writing on the wall for Stadia... The writing has been on the wall for Stadia for a while now. Most recently, when Logitech announced its new cloud gaming handheld last week? I didn't even know about this. The fuck is this? Logitech cloud gaming handheld? The G Cloud? The fuck is this? Android-based handheld streaming. Interesting. Kind of reminds me of the Nvidia Shield. But, anyway. Well, I didn't even hear about that. Yada yada. But Stadia, let's see. Oh, a new cloud gaming handheld. Stadia was one of the few cloud gaming services not mentioned. Oh, they're not doing... Thank God. Okay, so that handheld is not a service unto itself. It can access multiple services? Okay, interesting. But not Stadia. Stadia has been facing rumors of its demise practically from the start. Google has a habit of killing projects only a few years after they launch, and Stadia, a cloud gaming service from a company with few ties in the gaming industry, seems like a prime candidate for an early demise. And there's a very funny comment under this article about, like, they've launched so many... Stop pretending like Google just kills everything. They've got so many products that have worked out. Let me pull up hang on, Google Graveyard. Yeah, killed by Google.com. Is Stadia on here anymore? Yep, there it is. Let's see. Oh, that's funny. They have... This page is actually... There's 274 items here. They actually have a different icons for... There's a grave, if it's there, if it's already dead. And there's a guillotine if it's set to be killed. What the fuck is YouTube Go? 2017 to 2022? Killed about 2 months ago. YouTube Go was an app aimed at making YouTube easier to access on mobile devices in emerging markets through special features like downloading video on Wi-Fi for viewing later. I've literally never heard of this. What is YouTube Go? A lightweight Android app optimized for lower-end hardware? What? Why not just have, like, a mode that makes... What the fuck? Google My Business app. Google Chrome apps. Core Mode Jobs. An app that allowed users in India, Indonesia, and Bangladesh to help them find jobs. Android Auto for phone screens. Google Assistant Snapshot. Cameos on Google. Android things. Angular JS. JavaScript. All the things I mentioned were in 2022, like in the last year. Except for Angular JS. JavaScript open source. Okay, some code thing. On the chopping block, Google Hangouts. Because they're replacing Google Hangouts with a different Google Hangouts. Google On Hub. I don't even know what that is. YouTube Originals? That's so funny. Stadia. Google Currents. What? From 2019, going poof in 6 months, Google Currents was a service that provided social media features similar to Google Plus for Google Workspace customers. Conversational actions. Conversational Actions extended the functionality of Google Assistant by allowing third-party developers to create custom experiences or conversations for users of Google Assistant. And most recently, Google Cloud IoT Core, or furthest in the future, I should say, Google Cloud IoT Core was a managed service designed to let customers securely connect, manage, and ingest data from globally dispersed devices. There's so many things. There's so many things. Like, the kill list is so much longer than the hit list. Wait. It's just so interesting to like go back and read the first one. Google Desk Bar, 2003 to 2006. A small inset window on the Windows toolbar allowed users to perform searches without leaving the desktop. Huh. There's Google toolbar for Firefox. That's funny. They killed that in 2009. They've killed so many products over the years. Yeah. Anyway. Last year, rumors abounded it would shut down after the number of games released on the platform slowed and the company shuttered its in-house game development studios. They had those? Oh yeah, they never made any. I don't think they made any games for the Stadia. When those rumors popped up again this year, Google insisted that Stadia was not shutting down. Rest assured, we're always working, bringing more great games to the platform in Stadia Pro. Which was true until today. Microsoft, which is also heavily invested in cloud gaming, decline to comment. Nvidia, which makes the GeForce Now cloud gaming service, and AT&T, which used the Stadia tech to power a couple game trials, didn't immediately respond to requests for comment. Yeah, so... This is so funny. And you know what's funnier? Is the follow-up story. Coming to us from Engadget, courtesy of Chris Holt. Google reportedly canceled a Stadia exclusive follow-up to Death Stranding. To Death Stranding. I'm going to say that again. A Stadia exclusive follow-up to Death Stranding. So, according to 9to5 Google, at one point, Hideo Kojima was working on a Stadia-only follow-up to Death Stranding, which debuted on PlayStation. Death Stranding has some asynchronous multiplayer elements. Other players might be able to use ladders, roads, and other items that you place in the world, for instance. However, the planned follow-up was said to be a fully single-player game, which might have been the reason why Google canceled the project. According to the report, Google canned the game, which was described as an episodic horror title, after seeing the first mock-ups in 2020. Dude, this game didn't get canceled. It got aborted. They saw the first, concept art. They busted out the coat hangers. Holy shit. Stadia Vice President and General Manager Phil Harrison is said to have made the final decision to kill the project. For what it's worth, in a May 2020 interview, Kojima claimed one of his projects had recently been canceled. And this is the funniest thing. Here's the funniest part. Google reportedly abandoned the project in the belief that there wasn't a market for single-player games anymore. Of note, CD Projekt Red just announced that Cyberpunk 2077, which is on the Stadia, by the way, has now sold 20 million copies. Less than 2 years They're very generous in this article. They call it an eventful debut. 20 million copies. Million copies of a fucked up game. By mid-2021, Death Stranding itself had sold more than 5 million copies. So, like, oh my god. The lack of big exclusives is far from the only issue that led to Stadia's downfall. A questionable business model and a seemingly rushed rollout didn't help, nor did Google's reputation for ruthlessly killing off its own products. Never took off. The company was shut on the platform. Let's see. The news of Stadia's demise blindsided developers, from giants like Destiny 2 studio Bungie to indie studios whose titles were supposed to hit the now closed Stadia store in the coming weeks. Oh man. So they made these agreements and then they just say, hey, yeah, no, that's not happening. The store is getting locked down. As Axios notes, it isn't clear whether Google has a broad plan to reimburse studios for costs they expected to recoup after launching their games on Stadia. There are concerns about what Stadia's closure means for game preservation, too. While Google didn't secure AAA exclusives, Stadia has some indie games that aren't available elsewhere. Yeah, that was like the saddest part. Like seeing all these indie games and you're like, fuck, please go to Steam. Just make it to Steam. Just make it to Steam and you'll be alright. Meanwhile, some are calling on Google to unlock the Stadia controller's Bluetooth functions. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. The argument is that if people can more easily use the controller on other platforms, it's less likely that the gamepad will become e-waste. The controller connects directly to Wi-Fi for Stadia games in order to minimize lag. Which is so funny. It connects to Wi-Fi. Who's playing on Wi-Fi? You can also hook it up to devices with a USB-C. As for Kojima, he has a Death Stranding sequel in the works, according to the game's star Norman Reedus. Yeah. Apparently the Death Stranding sequel is going to have some kind of cloud technology with Microsoft. I don't know what that's about. Yeah, so... Dude, could you imagine? Could you imagine the sequel to Death Stranding being a Stadia exclusive? Like, run that through your head for a second. That, like... It would be like Metal Gear Solid 4 all over again. Like, Kojima already has one game landlocked to a console. Imagine it's not just to like you can't even emulate Stadia anymore. Imagine that there's a whole Kojima game that's just gone. Oh no, wait, PT. Why does this keep happening to him? Why does Kojima keep making games that get lost to time and console exclusivity? I'm so glad that didn't happen. And I feel bad for all the indie devs. I really do. That has to... Oh my god. Yeah, hopefully they can get their games onto other platforms or sign with some kind of a publisher to help them get... If they don't have the money, to help them get on Steam or something like that. At least. Just somewhere that you can play it, right? And the most poetic thing, you're like, oh yeah, of course it would be canceled because it was the fucking Stadia. It was the Google effing Stadia. No, that wasn't why it was canceled. It was canceled because Google didn't think there was a market for single player games anymore in like 2020. Just, one of the best things about Elden Ring. I didn't play Elden Ring. I haven't played it yet. Maybe I will in the future. I haven't played it, but one of the best things about it for like the environment of gaming is that it showed all of these fucking people who know nothing about video games how stupid they are. Just how all these idiot like C-suites and investors that they look at like, well, what makes the most money? It's so funny because like it's strange, right? Because you look at like the metric for success for people like this is so skewed. It's this weird thing where it's like a game or a market or something isn't successful unless it's literally, the most successful. I think I've said it before, but like video games are like the most hyper capitalist industry next to like something like, I don't know, gambling or like cigarettes or something like that. Just the most profit driven, like insane people ever, where if it doesn't make we can't just make a lot of money. We can't just make an ungodly amount of money. We have to make all of the money. All of your money. We need it all. And if we can't have it, then it's not even worth trying. It's just, because it's so baffling to like a regular human being with like a soul. I'm lost for words to think like the reason why they didn't think that there was any market for single player games makes no fucking sense. It's not based on any kind of actual like, oh, well, what are people playing, it's not like one of the most hyped games at the time of like the last 7 years was Cyberpunk 2077, a game which everyone knew was going to be purely single player. That was like guaranteed to be a million seller on release with just the sheer force of the hype it was generating. No way, you know where this impression comes from. You know where this idea came from. It's because they looked at the games that make the most money and they realized that they were all like perpetually online multiplayer games that just like squeeze every last cent out of their customers with microtransactions and subscription fees and add-ons and DLC and all these other things. That was what it was. It was everything else, even something as blindingly popular as Cyberpunk 2077, something so earth-shakingly hyped up, completely under the radar, because it wasn't the biggest thing ever, or because it wasn't making all the money right now for me. And I'm so glad that Elden Ring came out and it showed how fucking stupid these people are. And I will admit that, it probably didn't, the message probably didn't go through to them. Because again, Elden Ring, I'm sure it's made a stupid amount of money, but again, it hasn't made all the money in the world, right? Even though it's all anyone could talk about for like a month, 2 months after it released. The only thing anyone could talk about who had played it. It was just in this blind spot of not being, oh my god, the monetization. Oh, it's so genius. It's so brilliant. Another reminder of why I don't play AAA games for the most part. So funny. What a funny company. What a stupid decision. And I don't think anyone's losing their jobs over this, so I can actually be a little amused that this happened. Right? If people were like losing jobs, if like a company went under, I'd be like, it's kind of a shame. I could at least feel empathy for the people who were lost their jobs and all that. But this is Google, so it's just funny. You just look like a fucking dope. Of course, there is so one of the reasons that Google kills so many projects is that I believe you actually get a bonus at Google if you successfully get an idea into production. The idea doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be successful. You just have to make a project start. And they'll just spit some fucking thing out. Like, here it is. It's not finished. But hey, why not? We don't care. They'll just dump it out into one of their services. They won't even advertise it. There'll be no marketing campaign. Google doesn't it's like they don't even look at their services, their products as products. They look at them as like growths. Like another mushroom on their hill. Yeah, a bird can come by and eat it at any time. Oh, yeah. At least it grew.